Today is Sunday, September 18th. This is the 1969 Cadillac Coupe DeVille tilt and telescopic steering column from my friend Joe out in California. This is a level 10 restoration whereby the unit has been completely disassembled as depicted by the 3 predecessor videos. So this is video number 4 out of the 4 video set, and we're doing the final functional validation test of the fully assembled embodiment. 1969 was the first year where General Motors introduced the Keylock cylinder for the ignition inside and integral to the tilt and telescopic steering column housing head. We have this protruding area that is the housing for the Keylock cylinder. Okay, and this is an original period correct 1969 Delco Keylock cylinder as opposed to an aftermarket. In the majority of the cases where I'm rebuilding these steering columns, they have been destroyed because of an aftermarket Keylock cylinder having been inserted. And right over here I'm depicting the aftermarket one as opposed to the original General Motors, and we can see the noticeable differences in the design, the aftermarket and the original. And the most important aspect for many drivers is not locking themselves out of the car. And so what General Motors had done is they had introduced a buzzer alarming system whereby a buzzer would go off if you left your key in the ignition. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've connected this light bulb and these wires to the buzzer alarm, and we'll be looking for the light bulb to go on as soon as I insert the key. So I insert the key and the light bulb comes on. That would be indicative of the buzzer alarming the driver that he's left his key in the ignition. So as soon as you go to start the car, the light bulb goes off. Okay, and when you start engaging the recoiling mechanism to do the ignition, we can be looking here at the ignition switch, the actuating bar, and the motion of the Keylock cylinder right here. Okay, and they all work together in concert. Okay, so we're turning the ignition to start the car, and in concert the bar is actuating, and inside the switches are aligning to the appropriate electrical connectors for the proper continuity as needed to start the car. And all during this time the light bulb is off until I turn it to the lock position, which would be indicative of parking the car, and you turn the key to the lock position to pull the key out, and the buzzer alarm is alarming the driver that he's left his key in until he pulls the key out and the light bulb comes off. So put the key in, the buzzer switch comes on, turn on the ignition, the buzzer switch goes off, do your recoiling to start the car, and so forth and so on. Back to lock, pull the key out, light bulb comes off, put the key in, light bulb comes on, go backwards into auxiliary mode, and again the buzzer switch is on and the light bulb is indicating that the buzzer switch is on. Okay, that was auxiliary mode. This is lock mode, ignition mode, lock mode, pull the key out, light bulb comes off. So enough said about the buzzer switch. Let's talk about why these aftermarket Keylock cylinders don't work. Number one, the engagement knob, which is depicted right over here, is not protruding out sufficiently, nor is it in proper axial alignment to the buzzer switch. And when I put the key on into these aftermarket Keylock cylinder, this is an OPG Keylock cylinder purchased by my friend Joe that he sent to me. He bought a key-to-like set for his doors and his ignition in order to have one key, which is consistent with the original design. But this just does not support the buzzer switch, because when I insert the key, this nib should pop out, and it doesn't, because the plastic parts have just gotten, they're just soft and they wear out almost immediately, and it's just a, cavalcade of comedy, these ignition switches. Whereas here's a 50-year-old worn out General Motors Keylock cylinder, and we can look here for the knob, the nib, the engagement nib, and we'll watch it pop out, and there it goes. Okay, so now this one is engaging because it's protruding out sufficiently and it has proper axial alignment and orientation to the buzzer switch, which the aftermarket ones do not. Okay, so there it is embedded in the housing. Put the key in and it pops out. That's the aftermarket one that does not work and causes problems, and these are the original General Motors Delco units, which are also easily identifiable by the red stripe in the indentation for alignment to the lock, as well as the rear, as well as the protruding nib. So those are 3 indications of when you have an original vintage Delco lock that works, or when you have a problematic aftermarket piece of junk. So people will wind up spending $10, $15 on a cheap keylock cylinder, and they'll wind up causing catastrophic failure, requiring thousands of dollars to rebuild the steering column. Okay, so now, enough said about the keylock cylinder. I'm going to go ahead and put these away. And we're going to do a functional validation test of the steering column. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and connect my wires. And I'm going to turn the turn signal downwardly. First, I'm going to cancel out. I'm going to push the turn signal down. That's indicative of a left-hand turn. And now I'll go ahead and touch the left-hand front and the left-hand rear. Left hand front, left hand rear. I'll go ahead and rotate the shaft, and we'll be looking for the lever to cancel out, and it does. Now we'll pull the lever upwardly, being an indicating of a right hand turn, and we'll touch the right hand front and the right hand rear. Right hand front, right hand rear. If we touch the left, nothing happens. Right, because we're in right hand mode. So right hand front, right hand rear. So we've tested the left and right, front and rear turn signals. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and again cancel this out, and the lever snaps back to neutral as if you were completing your turn. I'll go ahead and press in the emergency hazard button, okay, and connect to the power feed for the emergency hazard lights. And what we have here is the brake light coming on, because in the emergency hazard mode the brake lights come on. So there's our brake light. And then again, right front, left front, right rear, left rear. So that's 5 lights coming on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in hazard mode, because in hazard mode you have the left and right, front and rear signal lights flashing, as well as the brake lights. Okay, so we've tested the turn signals, we've tested the hazard mode. The next thing that we have that we can test, oh, we've also tested the buzzer switch, and now I'm going to connect to the horn. And right here in front we have these copper tabs, and I'll be touching the copper tab, and we see that the light bulb comes on. So I'm touching the copper tab and the light bulb comes on, and that's the electrical continuity being supplied to the horn. Okay, and that's where the large conical coil spring connects to these 3 tabs inside the housing. So the last and final thing to test are the cornering lamps. So again, left hand, and we'll test, and we'll be looking for the light bulb for the cornering lamp to come on. And there's our left hand cornering lamp. When I touch the right hand cornering lamp, nothing happens because we're in left hand mode. So I'll cancel out. We'll go to right hand mode, and now I'll touch the right hand terminal, and there's our cornering right hand. And the left does not work when I touch the left. So right hand mode for the cornering lamp. So we've tested the turn signals, front and rear, left and right. We've tested the emergency flashers, which are front and right, front and back, left and right, and braking lights. And we've tested the left and right cornering lamp. So that is, and we've tested the horn. Okay, so that's it for the electrical testing on the wiring harness functionality. And this is a tilt and telescopic steering column. So the next thing that I want to test is the fixably constrained telescopic neck, whereby quarter of a turn and it's free flowing. Okay, quarter of a turn locks it in place. So that is the infinite movement for the telescopic neck. And last but not least is the tilting action. So I'm going to be holding it down, and there we have 5 degrees of freedom. I'll rotate it a little bit so we can see the angularity. So that's a full up, partial up, neutral, partial down, and the full down, and back to neutral. Okay, so there it is, the completed functional validation test of the 1969 Cadillac DeViLLE tilt and telescopic steering column. The DeViLLE steering column is unique and specific to DeViLLE, unlike the Eldorado, as it has the large 1-inch 48 spline as opposed to the 3/4 36 spline, which is for the Eldorado. So this is a DeViLLE specific steering column. Okay, and everything has been fully disassembled, climatized with the corrosion resistant surface treatment. The exterior tubular body, the shifting collar, and the head housing have all been resprayed in the original number 10 sable black, as all 1969 and 70 Cadillacs were number 10 sable black on the steering columns and the steering wheels. Okay, and this is for my friend Joe in California, and it'll be shipping out as soon as I get his okay to ship. Reply confirmation. This is George in Florida. I have over 75,000 original vintage parts from 1967 through 1970, which is my heart of the range. I have over 375,000 1959 to 1976 Cadillac items overall, and all the way through 78 for the Eldorado. I'm best known for my restoration of the Cadillac steering wheels, including the steering wheels with the wood grain inlay from 69 through 78, and of course the 1 year only specialty 1969 rim-blow steering wheel, which I fabricate myself from scratch. So in addition to the steering wheels, I do the tilt and telescopic steering columns as depicted in this video, the power seat mechanisms, the instrument clusters, power door lock actuators, and other critical, hard to source original vintage Cadillac items. Today is Sunday, September 18th. This is George in Florida. Thank you very kindly.